Nearly 12 years ago, I learned how to code, got a job in tech. I came from a very non traditional background, meaning I literally had an intervention as my catalyst, as my starting point to get into tech. And if you're wondering, wait, that kind of intervention? Yes, my friend, that kind of intervention. Since then, I've worked at multiple boot camps. I actually own and operate a coding boot camp, but we'll get into that later. If you've been following this show, you already know about that. And I've just helped hundreds of people somehow get into tech. I've also done 1,000 calls over the phone with many of you out there that are listening and giving you advice for absolutely free. I'm still doing this, by the way. I just don't make it super public because I don't want to be flooded with phone calls all the time. I still really enjoy talking to people, and genuinely, I really like to hear what people are going through. So that gives me a good idea of what you might be going through right now on the market. And here's some harsh advice that I want to share with you that I probably wouldn't want to say on LinkedIn, because it would get me banned, or people would get all mad and say, oh no, my friend got hired because of their portfolio. You're wrong. AI has taken all the jobs. All these kind of old, boring points people like to make that probably have never even worked in tech. I'm like, where'd you get these opinions from, buddy? From the newspaper or something like that? From your mom that doesn't work in tech? Anyway, I'm here to tell you the real deal, what I think you should be doing, and take what I say with a grain of salt, because this is just one opinion out there. But remember this, and I truly mean this, I will never give you advice about something to do that I wouldn't do myself or that I haven't seen personally work. Now, before I can tell you what to do, I think it's as important or more important to look at what not to do. And what not to do at a very high level is do what most people are doing, right? You think, what does the average boot camp grad or college grad do? They do this. They build some basic portfolio. They obsess over their GitHub and how many green dots they have on it. And then they go and ask employers to take a chance on them by playing up the fact that they are very, very junior and they are dedicated and they have passion for web development or whatever. And they expect somebody to hand them a job within 6 months. And when they do not get this job, they are upset, they quit, and they hate everything that is tech, and they think the market is absolutely in shambles. Now, here's the reality. The market sucks for junior developers right now. It really does. But it sucks for people in all entry-level positions, and I've done a video on YouTube exploring this phenomenon. It is not just tech. Entry-level white-collar professions are having a very, very hard time with hiring junior candidates, meaning they've decided, hey, we're not going to hire any more junior candidates. Let's just be honest here. It's gone down like 75% in some industries. I don't know when that's going to reverse or change, but I do know there are some things that you could do. So if that's what most people do, they build some basic project that everybody's built a million times. They build a to-do app, a movie finder, maybe a chat app now in the AI era. And then their LinkedIn or resume says, hey, I'm super duper junior, but I'm very, very passionate, whatever that means. I'm a passionate developer, very passionate. And then they go on LinkedIn and use the LinkedIn Easy Apply button. They smash it about 1,000 times. And they don't get one call back and they're like, what the hell's going on? So that is the average. That's your competition, right? That's your competition in a nutshell. And it's okay if you're doing this stuff, like maybe nobody told you what you could be doing instead. So what could you do? I don't want to say what should you do, because if you were my kid, like if you were my son or daughter, I'd be like, here's what you should be doing. Let me just tell you what to do. So maybe I'll just act like you are my son or daughter and tell you what you just should be freaking doing. Let me give you some very opinionated opinions on what you should be doing. If you were my daughter or son, you came to me, Dad, trying to get into tech. I built a Next.js app with a chat interface and no one's calling back. I'm like, what the hell? Let's look at your resume. First of all, don't give anybody any indication that you are junior. They'll be able to tell that from the interview. Software developer, software engineer, front-end engineer, back-end engineer, full stack engineer, AI engineer. Use one of those titles. In fact, have a few resumes. Maybe have two at a minimum, and have one that says software engineer, one that says front-end engineer or back-end engineer or whatever. And then use those separately. The first thing on that resume should be something that tells me you are, in fact, a software engineer. You're like, I don't have any experience. Then you must get some experience. If you're my son or daughter, I'd say, come work for me, right? You're going to be building some websites for me, some web pages. You can work on this project that I have. Let's start a little business together. Let's get an LLC, and let's have you actually be part of a real business and doing things that would show somebody that you know what the hell you're talking about, and then give me some indication that you also know what the hell you're talking about. So I might have them do a project like, hey, I need you to build a new integration for our website right now. Here's the repo. I want you to clone it down down, get it running, ask me for the environment variables, do all the things that would help you go from A to B on this project and get something done. Then you can talk about that on your resume. Now, if you don't have a father's me, if you're not lucky enough to have a pops like me, that's okay, because you can go out there and you can ask your friends, your family, your cousins, your neighbors, your church, wherever your community lives, and say, hey, what can I do to help you? And it doesn't need to be a website, and maybe it shouldn't be a website. Nowadays, honestly, what I'd be building is pretty simple. I'd be building an agent that does something. It can't be an agent that just tells you like the church information, like here's a little chatbot on our website that tells you when we're open or whatever. That's like okay to start. You know what would be really cool? If that agent could go out there and look for like Bible verses and then tell you some verse based on some problem you're having, and then maybe like encourage you to come in and then set an appointment with the pastor or something like that. I mean, I'm not like some church going dude, so I'm just making this up as I go. But think about this. What if you build an agent that could go scour the web and do a bunch of Boolean searches? And if you don't know what a Boolean search is, look it up. And maybe you can do a bunch of Boolean searches for jobs and then find those jobs and then send it to you every morning. And then you could even sell this thing. You could say, hey, do other developers want to use this, or other people like admins or new grads, whatever, want to use this? Well, then how would you scale it to make it work for anybody? How could they put in their preferences, what they're looking for, their location, and then build an agent that could go do this thing and then like expose it so that anybody that pays like $10 a month could use it? Now, that's a real cool business, and you're going to learn a lot by doing that. But whatever you build, let me tell you this, you should probably get some users for it. The reason why you want to have users for whatever you build is because then you understand the pain of understanding how users use an app. And then you also understand the pain of what it's like to get users. You know who's hiring right now? Speaking of like getting users in this whole like journey of how do you get people onto your app? You know who's experiencing that same pain? Startups. Do you know who's also hiring right now? Startups. Do you know who's not really hiring right now? Big tech and big corporations, right? We're reading about them all the time in the headlines. They are slashing employees. Gusto, which is a payroll processing system or service, right, for small businesses. I actually use it at Parsity, or we did use it at Parsity. Anyways, these people have seen the explosion of jobs at small and medium-sized businesses. They added just under 1 million jobs recently, and I'll have the article, whatever, in the show notes so you can see that I'm not just making this up, right? So they are going through a mini explosion. I don't want to say, oh my God, they're like desperate for everybody. They're not, right? But they're much more desperate and willing to accept people who are risky hires, meaning if you are a newer grad and you may not have all that background or degree from some fancy university, well, guess who might want to have you? And guess what problems they're likely having too? They can't find users, or they're trying to attract users or keep users or whatever. And if you have that experience, even at a very small level with your own projects, then you could use that and translate it. And then that would make you a very attractive, sexy candidate for these places, right? You know, don't call HR. And here's another thing. These places probably aren't on LinkedIn nearly as much as you are, right? Like I can't actually think of the last job I got from LinkedIn. I actually was wrong about the number of jobs I've got from LinkedIn. Now I have nearly 12 years experience and my inbox is flooded, you know, to humble brag just a bit here. My inbox is flooded with freaking recruiters asking me to come interview here or there. And I say, no. I got to focus. I like where I'm at right now. I'm a senior software engineer at a larger tech company where I really like my coworkers. I really like the work we're doing. And I own Parsity. I'm building cool stuff there. I don't want to go work for some 5-person startup again and have my hair on fire. I already lost all my hair. I don't have anything else to lose, right? I don't want to do that. But maybe you do. And so if you do want to find these places, I can guarantee you they're not mostly on LinkedIn. Go on AngelList, which I think has been renamed to Well Found. These are places that are a little bit harder to find, and they're mostly not going to be on LinkedIn. And also, write a little bit on LinkedIn here and there. I've said this before, I'll say it again. I don't like LinkedIn. Let me just be very honest with you. I don't like it as a platform, but I do use it. 1, for business, and 2, I've made a lot of really great connections on there. I love the people that I've met on LinkedIn. I just don't like the platform. It really promotes nothing but AI-generated slop, really outdated, lame takes, and just boring nonsense that really is not that helpful to anybody. But the one thing I use it for, and why I still continue to use it, not just for business, is because this is where recruiters will often find me. and we'll have a conversation offline. Because I don't care if that recruiter is coming from a small company, mid-sized company, a massive company, they're going to use LinkedIn to find you. That's the only way we can find talent nowadays, unfortunately, is via LinkedIn. So LinkedIn is the platform. You can't just say, I'm not using it. You have to have a profile on there, and your profile has to match all the same stuff that I said about your resume. Don't have any indication that you're super duper junior. Have the first thing on there be some sort of verifiable work that you can point to, and then consider writing once or twice a week on LinkedIn, just so you raise up in the ranks in those search rankings a little bit, so that way they can find you when they're looking for you, if they're looking for you. This becomes much more important, by the way, if you're more senior and you already have years of experience. Then I really do think you should try to optimize your LinkedIn a little bit more, because recruiters are already likely searching for you. They're definitely searching for senior people right now. And if you're not getting found, it's probably because you have less than 500 connections, and possibly because you don't ever post anything on there and you haven't updated anything there for a while. So that's kind of my 2 cents on that. I don't have a lot of proof to back that up, but I do know that when I'm trying to find people, when I was using LinkedIn Sales Navigator, there is a filter that shows your activity on LinkedIn. And if I want to search for people that are active, meaning they have posted once in the last week, guess how many people that applies to? Very, very few. So if that is a qualifying criteria they're using to find you, then you might as well just post once a week, even if it's just something lame, because at least you're rising up in the search rankings. So we've covered a little bit about the experience you should try to get. We've covered a little bit about where you should be trying to find places. What about the actual tech skills you need? Let me just be clear about this. I think that is becoming less and less important, right? If you learn JavaScript, don't think that learning Rust is going to be your major ticket to getting employed. 2 years ago, I would have disagreed with this. Right now, I really strongly feel this way. I do think if there's one skill you want to get, obviously, you already know what it is. Why do I have to say it? I don't want to say it, but you're making me say it. It's AI, right? That's the only skill you should be getting. And it's not just Claude. That is becoming like knowing Git. It's like they assume you know Claude. It's no longer a cool thing to be like, oh yeah, I use Claude or Cursor to write code. It's actually weirder if you say you don't. Because in interviews, they're going to say, what tools are you using and why? And if you say, I don't use any tools, that's a red flag, right? If you say, oh, I use Claude and Cursor, cool, on to the next question. We just kind of assumed it. We're just checking because that's the new thing that we got to do. This is the new AI world, and we're all going to pretend like we use all the tools, right? All good, boom, on to the next. So that's not a differentiator. And it's very difficult to show that you are a power user with Claude in the same way that it's very difficult to show that you're like a power user with Git or something like that, or you know terminal commands really well. Like, I'm a bash expert. And they're like, cool, man, that's great. We're not building bash scripts here. So what part of AI do you lean more into? Obviously, agents and RAG. Said it a million times. I'll just keep saying it because no one's really doing it, which is pretty funny to me. But yeah, learning how to build agents. And I don't mean agents that are like Claude skills files. I mean like building programmatic agents that can do stuff like we just spoke about earlier in the episode. That agent that's going to help you search a bunch of listings online to find a job, right? Maybe you could even like fill out your resume. It could do all that boring grunt work for you. Now that is a cool agent. You add some RAG on top of that, and boy, you're cooking, right? You add RAG and you can just go ahead and get that in the show notes, the project that I give away for free that's better than most things that people pay for. You get that. You pair that with an agent and another project I have that you can learn how to do that. And man, you're off, right? You're going to have more skills than the majority of people out there that don't know either one of these things. And I'm talking about senior people, staff people, your manager, talking about a lot of people just don't know this stuff yet. No shame on them. It's just really new. Why would they know it, right? But you can learn it right now for free. Oh, and last thing, I cannot forget this. Your timeline is going to be unexpected, right? I went to a boot camp in 2013 or something like that. I learned to code. I'd been writing code for a little bit before that. In that year, I didn't write it before at all in my 20s or anything. I was an adult man when I wrote my first line of HTML. Now I'm deploying HTML containers in the cloud with AI, Kubernetes, other buzzwords, right? HTML containers in the cloud. That's where we're going. That's the future I want to see. But anyways, I got hired really quickly, like super duper quickly, because I had no freaking shame. You got to remember, my old life was getting like straps pointed at my head and stuff like that, right? So I wasn't tripping on calling up a business and being like, hey, are you hiring? And just walking in there. I'm like, I didn't know enough to know that I should have been embarrassed. I just had no clue. I'm like, I don't know. Yeah, I learned some HTML. That's what you're hiring for, right? Give me a job. Are you full stack? Hell yeah, I am. Whatever you need me to be, that's the thing I am. I just didn't know. My ignorance was a blessing, right? I walked into these places and thought, I'm actually a good candidate. I was an awful candidate. I finally got a job and realized fully how awful I was. And it took me nearly 2 years to crawl out of that hole. I mean, it was really, really mentally draining. Anyways, back to what I was saying about the timeline thing. Your timeline will be your own timeline. If it doesn't take a year, it might take 2. If it doesn't take 2, it might take 3. I had a guy on this show, he said it took him 4 years after learning how to code to get his first job. Now, to some people, they're thinking, what? That's insane. To me, hearing this, I thought, okay, life-changing thing. The guy is still younger than I was when I got my first job. No kids, right? Pretty advantageous position. So what if it takes 4 years? What if it takes 1 or 2? What if it takes 3? If you go to college, it would have taken you 4 years, right? So if you learn on your own and you learn all the skills you need to in 6 months or something like that, and then you get hired in 3 years, isn't that pretty good return on investment? So I know that's like harsh to say, or people might not want to hear that or think I'm way out of touch or tone deaf. I'm just telling you like just basic math, right? If you learn a skill in 6 months and it takes you 3 years to get hired, but the amount of money you're going to make by making that jump is going to be astronomical, right? If you go from like 50K or 40K to 110K or even 100K or even 90K, that's going to be nearly double what you'd normally make if you just stayed put. If you just had the determination to be like, no, I'm going to keep doing this until somebody hires me, and realize you're not trying to win the lotto here. You're just trying to get one opportunity to prove yourself and then get hired. Now, we're not going to go into how to do interviews and all that kind of stuff. That's a whole other episode in itself. And if you want me to do that, I'm happy to go deeper into interviews. But I feel like I've done a lot of that already. So you can look at the old shows that I've done or just research interviews on the Develop Yourself podcast. And I give all sorts of information out about interviews and what I think is truly going to help you out. I used to coach developers on how to pass interviews because I sucked at them so much that I knew it was a life-changing thing to teach somebody. I'm not being hyperbolic when I say that. So check those episodes out because they do have some great information for the majority of you and what you're likely going to experience on the job market if you're in the US. Oh yeah, stop looking to ChatGPT for your answers on everything. This is one of the quickest ways to lose a skill before you even gain it. No one's going to hire you if you know how to prompt Claude or Cursor or ChatGPT. That's not a thing. I don't care what anybody told you. When you go in that interview, they're going to say, now code in front of me with your hands, right? They're not going to just say, do everything through the terminal or through the prompt or whatever, just prompt your way to mastery. That's complete nonsense. It's not a career. It's not a way you're going to ever get anything out of it, right? So don't fall into that trap. And then find humans. Find people besides me and ask them, hey, what did you do to get into your job? How was that like? What was the interview process like, right? Don't just take my word for it and don't just take their word for it. Take all the experiences, all the different remarks and all the different responses you get about what real people are going through and how they really got to those jobs, and then make an educated opinion about what you could or should be doing. Find someone that's done what you want to do and then try to emulate what makes sense. That's one of the simplest paths, and that's exactly what I told my son to do too. I said, if you want to get into building cars or fashion or something that I have no clue about, find somebody that knows what they're doing and has done the thing, and then ask them, how did you do it? And then take what makes sense and apply that to your own path. I hope that is helpful. I hope I wasn't super duper harsh or pissed you off or something like that. And I apologize if I did a little bit. And by the way, if you have a question or something you'd like me to answer, just leave it in a comment. I get a ton of comments on YouTube, but I don't really get any of them on Spotify. And this is where like the core audience of like the hardcore develop yourself people live. So if you have a question, a comment, just post it. It really helps people find the show. And then I'd also like to actually answer the things that you want to know rather than just guessing, because chances are if you are a commenter, you're probably a long time listener of this show. And I truly do want to hear what you'd like me to speak about. Anyways, have an excellent, amazing week, you sexy developer, and I'll see you around.